Persnippety. That's one of my wife's favorite words. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to 1 Corinthians 15. It's called the resurrection chapter because it's about the resurrection of Christ and also about the resurrection of us. And we're in class number 11 now of this chapter. It's hard to believe we could do 11 classes on one chapter in the Bible, but we actually have quite a bit to go on this chapter yet. But as you recall, we started out in the first 20 verses or so studying the resurrection of Christ, and we started studying that back around Easter. And then Paul switched in verse 20-something to discussing the resurrection of us, that someday we will get a body. And we are now going through the various pieces of that puzzle. And as Paul told us in last week's class, our new body that we're going to get is not exactly like our old body. It's going to be different. And today we're going to look at what those differences are going to look like. Paul gives us those differences in 6 verses. That's verses 39 through 44 of this chapter. We're going to study those 6 verses today. And we're going to look at this beautiful, glorious new body that we're going to get someday if we're with the Lord. And if you're not with the Lord, I pray that you'll make that change and get with him, because this beautiful body is waiting for you if you are, and this beautiful time with him forever. We said last week that the body we have today is designed for the world we live in. It's designed to give us what we need in the world that we live in. Well, this new body that we're going to get is going to be designed for the world that we will live in the future. And that is the body of the millennial kingdom, and even more so, the body of the new heaven and the new earth, which is all in the later chapters of Revelation. So it's a body that will be perfectly designed for that life. And that life, of course, will be in the presence of God, and it will be eternal. So that is the body that we're going to look at. And we're going to look at the features of that body today, all the things that Paul says here in these 6 verses that are going to be in that body. So let's start with verse 39. I'm going to give you that one first. If you're following along at home, by the way, please open your Bibles to 1 Corinthians 15, verse 39. We're going to start there today. Paul says, "Not all flesh is the same. People have one kind of flesh, animals have another, birds another, excuse me, and fish another." So what Paul is saying here, first of all, is that there's going to be something different about our flesh. There's already something different about our flesh today from the flesh of animals and birds and fish. Our flesh, we have bigger brains. That's probably the biggest thing. Our bodies have bigger brains than fish. You always hear the same bird brain, right? Birds obviously don't have big brains. Our brains are bigger. So our brains are designed for the world that we live in, for giving us the ability to do what we need to do in that world. So we can assume that the body that we will be getting will have more glory than the body that we have today. It's going to be a body where all of the things that are different, that make us different from fish and animals and all that, will be better. Now, 2 words I don't know where I'm going to put everything here. 2 words I've put up a lot over the years that many of you have seen is nephesh. And nephesh is the spirit of animals. This is in Genesis 1:21. When God creates animals, he gives them a spirit. They're different from trees. They don't just stand there and do nothing. They're different from stones. They have a spirit. And when God originally creates Adam, in verse 26, Adam has nephesh. He hasn't received his neshama yet, which is the next part. He receives his neshama in Genesis 1:27, when he receives the Spirit of God, when the breath of life is blown into him by God. Up until then, he's been created with the same spirit as the animals have. Then he gets the Spirit of God, or the Spirit of man that comes from God, the Spirit that we all have today, the Spirit to know right from wrong, and the Spirit to be able to live eternally. We don't know if fish and birds and stuff are going to live eternally. We'd love to have our dogs with us in paradise, but we don't know that. But we do know that our spirit, our neshama, will be an eternal spirit, so we know that. So our bodies are going to have more glory than they have today. We already have more glory than fish and birds and animals, But our bodies are going to have more glory in eternity than what we have today. So it looks like our new, from the verse we just read, it looks like our new resurrected flesh, our bodies, is going to be similar to what we have today, but it's also going to be distinctly different. And that's what we're going to look at today, is how is it going to be different? Where are the differences going to be? Questions on that? So let's go to verses 40 and 41 next, and I'll read you those two. There are also heavenly bodies, and there are earthly bodies, but the splendor of the heavenly bodies is one kind, and the splendor of the earthly bodies is another. The sun has one kind of splendor, the moon another, and the stars another, and stars differ from stars and star differs from star in splendor. So now we're going to talk about splendor, which is in verse 40 and 41. That our bodies will have a different kind of splendor about them than what they have today. They will have more cool stuff about them, stuff that we can do that will be different than what we've seen, that our bodies do today. I'm going to talk about some of that as we get further on into the conversation today. But our bodies will have more capabilities. We will be able to do more stuff. Pretty cool, right? We'll be able to do more stuff than what we can do today.
You can jump higher.
Jump higher, there you go. You can dunk basketballs. Maybe we can, I don't know. I'm not promising you're all going to be Shaq O'Neal or whoever it is today, but yeah. So, biblical experts believe that, just like stars are different one from another, and just as each type of body has its own splendor. Heavenly bodies have their splendor. The sun has its splendor. The moon has its splendor. Splendor. I don't know why I have trouble with that word. The stars have their splendor. Everything has its own splendor in this world and in this universe. And interestingly enough, every star has a little different splendor. If you look at stars in heaven, they look a little different. And if you look at the pictures now that are coming out of the Webb Space Telescope, you see that every star is different. Trillions and trillions of stars out there, and they're all different. None of them are the same. They all have their splendor. Some are orange, some are green, some form this way and some that way, and there's just all these different, beautiful, beautiful things out there, the splendor of what's going on out in space. And our body will have splendor as well to it, just as that one does. Now, speaking of things being different, will we be different from other people? Are we going to look like everybody else up there? Are we all going to look the same? No, we're all going to be different. That's just like stars are all different from each other. That's what Paul's saying here. We're all going to be different from each other. And we're going to be different from each other in many ways. We don't know all of the ways. I'm going to dive into something here that many experts think might be the case. We don't know if it will be the case or not, but many experts think might be the case, is that our bodies may have different capacities for things. And that we know that being with Christ and making the decision for Christ is the ticket of admission to get into heaven, to get this glorious body and to get with God for all eternity. And we also know that once we get there, we're going to be perfectly happy. That's all over the scriptures. But are we all going to be are we all going to be happy in an equal way? In other words, are we all going to be exactly at the same capacity for happiness? Will we have different capacities for happiness based upon what we've done here on earth? Many experts believe that the scriptures are telling us that. I kind of think that that's going to be true, personally. But it may be, it may not be, but it might very well be. So what I'm leading to here, many experts believe that each of us will be perfectly happy based upon whatever capacity we have to enjoy this beautiful life that's coming. We will reach that full capacity. But we may have different capacities based upon what we did here on earth. Is Mother Teresa going to have a different capacity to enjoy heaven than I am? Very likely so, in my mind. Is Peter and Paul going to have a higher capacity to enjoy heaven than I have? Very possible. How about a person who gets there, who accepts Christ on his deathbed 5 minutes before dying, after living a life of sin? Is that person going to be there? Yes. Is he going to have happiness to his full capacity? Yes. Is his capacity going to be as high as Mother Teresa's, or as high as Peter or Paul? I kind of think probably not, but and the experts, most experts think probably not. Maybe not. But just something you can think about as you think about that phrase that Paul uses here, that just as the stars are all different. How does he say it again? He says, star differs from star in splendor. So he's talking about us being like the splendor of the stars, and how stars differ from other stars in splendor. Is our splendor going to be different? Is our capacity for appreciating everything that's going to be there going to be different based upon what we've done here on earth? Now, what we do here on earth depends on whether we get there or not. And that's all about accepting Christ and confessing your sins. If we do that, we're going to get there. And if we get there, we'll be perfectly happy. But will we have a higher capacity for happiness based upon what we've done here on earth? My instinct is we will. But don't go to the bank on that one. That's my thinking as I've read through Scripture of where I think we're going with this. And I think that's part of where Paul's going in that verse when he talks about how the stars have great splendor, but one star has different splendor from another. Star differs from star in splendor. Interesting. Questions on that?
So you're suggesting it could be based on rewards then?
I'm suggesting, yes, that our capacity, I think my instinct is that we are all going to be perfectly happy. Whatever level, capacity of happiness God gives us there, I think we're all going to reach that level of happiness. We will all be perfectly happy. But some of us may be happy at a higher level than other people are. And I'm suggesting that might be based, or probably should be based on what we've done for God here on earth. That's the good deeds that we've done for God. The good deeds we've done here on earth don't determine whether we're saved or not, don't determine whether we're there or not. But I think they do determine how much we're going to enjoy what we see there. That's my thinking of it.
I was thinking of the Jesus taught a parable about
the minas.
There was three.
Yeah, the minas.
Yeah, and they went out they came at a different time of the day. But they got paid the same.
Yes.
But
That was Matthew 20, 1-6. The vineyard, the guy with the vineyard who went out and got people in the morning.
He hired people at different points in the day. They all signed up for what was a fair wage for the day.
Yes.
Some of them had to work from 6 o'clock in the morning until late at night. Others just worked the last hour of the day. They all got paid what they accepted to get paid.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they all got the same reward at the end of the day. They got paid the same amount.
Yeah.
And some of them thought that was unfair. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and there are a number of others. The parable of the minas, the parable of the talents. There are some other kinds of things in there.
Well, the Bible mentions the crowns that we will receive to put at the feet of Christ.
Right.
And there are 5. Can't name them off right now, but do we receive only one crown, or can we receive more than one? I probably should know that, but
Good question. I have never thought of that. I'm not sure I'm going to take a position on that right here, right now, without really thinking about it.
I don't have my notebook. I've got that out, but
I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think we're all going to feel like I'm perfectly happy here. But I think some of us will feel perfectly happy at a higher level than others will. That's kind of what I'm saying, that I think is it. I mean, Jesus says, in my Father's house there will be many mansions. Does that mean that Mother Teresa's going to live in a mansion and I'm going to live in an outhouse? Maybe that's what that means. But I don't think it's physical like that. I think it's more enjoyment. I think Jesus is talking about mansions in the sense of, you know, the full amount, the fullness of what we're going to see may be different depending upon what we've done for him here on earth. I mean, there has to be some, it doesn't have to be, but he says that there is some reward to us for what we do here on earth. So, other questions on that? It's a tough question. Tough. It's a tough answer. You know, I mean, just like the people who've worked in the field all day felt a little betrayed by the fact that the other guy who came in and, you know, got the same pay as they got for a whole day of sweating in the sun, and he was only there in the evening when it was nice and cool, and by then half the work was done or most of the work was done. They probably didn't feel as good about that, but they got what they signed up for, which was getting to heaven, right? So, other questions? Okay, so let's move on now to verse 42. What else do we know about this body? Verse 42. So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. So we're talking about us, the body that we're going to get. So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown perishable is raised imperishable. Okay. So this body that we have clearly has a lot of defects, right? We can get sick. We can break a bone. We can get hurt. We can get injured. We can get germs. We can lose an arm, lose a leg. There's all kinds of things that can happen to this body that we have today. This body that we're going to get is going to be imperishable. It will not have any of those things. It will not have anything that can be a defect to that body. So that's what he's saying in there. We're going to talk about more detail on that as we get further on here. But so it will be raised imperishable. It is sown, now we're going to look at verse 43. Actually, let me look more at verse 42. We're going to be raised in honor and, aging. I left out aging when I was talking about all the other stuff. Those of us in this, most of us in this class have seen a few of the effects of aging on our body. Last week we had our grandchildren here, and one of the things I had to do was go in at night and pick my 5-year-old granddaughter up who weighs 49 pounds and carry her into the potty and put her on the potty in the middle of the night every night and bring her back. I had to do that every night. And I'll tell you, my back was aching after the end of a week of lifting a 49-pound child. That wouldn't have been the case 10 years ago, but it was the case last week. Deb can tell you how much I was complaining about my back all week long. I feel a lot better today, but I didn't have to do it last week. But I'm sure we all have our little stories of that as well. Things that our body's not quite doing the way they used to do in the past. So he's talking about a body that's going to be in honor as opposed to dishonor. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. One of the interesting things, and Debbie stopped by earlier and talked to me about this, about people who have had near-death experiences, or whatever you want to call those, and who see people in the next life who are relatives and who are in bodies, and they might not necessarily recognize those bodies because they are bodies that the person inhabited at a much younger age. So am I going to look like I'm 20 again? It'd be great. Deb and I will look like what we looked like when we met years ago. One of the other, so moving on now to verse 43. In verse 43, he says, "It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory, it is sown in weakness, it is raised in power." So our body is going to be honorable, and today our bodies sometimes aren't all that honorable. Sometimes they lead us into stuff that we shouldn't be led into. Our body's going to be honorable, it's going to be glorious. Does that mean there's going to be a shine about it? Interestingly enough, many of the people who have come back from these near-death experiences report about all the shine in heaven, all of the light and the brightness around people. So are we going to shine with a certain glory in this new body? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. It certainly implies that from what we just saw here.
Well, wait a minute. The shine, is that within or is that like a halo?
I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but I think it comes from within. I think my instinct is it's a shine that comes from within, and I got that from the Psalms Let me give you that reference again. It's in here somewhere. It's Psalm 45:13. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Is from Psalm 45, verse 13. It's the idea that the king's daughter is so beautiful and so righteous, but it really comes from inside of her. And she is just this pure, beautiful creature because of what's inside of her. That's kind of how I think of it. I don't know, we're all kind of guessing a little bit on all of this stuff, but that's kind of how I think about it. Where was I? So our bodies were sown into the ground in dishonor. There's nothing wonderful or honorable about death and about a dead body, right? It's sown into the ground in dishonor, but it will rise as an honorable body, and a body that cannot be dishonored, a body that is always honorable, always sinless, if you will. It talks about weakness and power. We all have our weaknesses today. You know, whether it be unscrewing a cap on a milk bottle or whether it be lifting a 50-pound child and you know, picking her up and putting her on the potty or whatever it is, we all have our weaknesses today, or whether it be the weightlifters that can't lift 350, they can only lift 300. Whatever it is, we all have weaknesses in our body today, and we're not going to have those weaknesses. We're going to have power. We're going to have more power in these bodies, way more power than what we have in these bodies today. So it seems to imply that we're going to have a level of strength that's way beyond what we have today. These bodies are sown into the ground as natural bodies, but they are raised from the ground as spiritual bodies. So this body is the body we have today can hold our spirit that we have today in it. But the spirit that we're going to have once we have come through that period where we are with God is going to be a different spirit. It's going to be a spirit raised up to a much higher level. And this body is going to have to be able to hold that spirit. That's what he's saying here in this verse. This body will have to be able to hold that spirit within it. And that means the body has to be a great temple for that particular spirit. It has to be a pure, clean kind of temple for that spirit. And so it's going to be imperishable and it's going to be spiritual. Questions on that? Let me go now to verse 44. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. I just said that. If there is a natural body, there also is a spiritual body. So what he's saying is that the body we have today is the fitting temple for the spirit we have today. The spirit we will have in the new heaven and new earth will need an upgraded body to be inside, that it can be inside of. And that upgraded body is what we will get as part of this process. So those are the key things that Paul's told us. And let's just kind of, by the way, one other interesting point, and this is something Jesus talked about. When Jesus rose, he talked about his own body one time in Luke 24:39. And he said, as spirit does not have flesh. As spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have. So Jesus's body will look like it has flesh and bones. It will have flesh and bones like ours, but it may be a different kind of flesh and a different kind of bone than what we have. If it's going to be indestructible, that means that those bones can't break like ours do. Does that mean our body's going to be made out of tungsten or titanium or something in those days? I doubt it. I'm not quite sure what particular material God's going to use to make our flesh out of at that time. It may be a material that doesn't exist on earth today or doesn't exist in the universe today. It may be some material that God's going to create that we don't even know what it is today. That may be the... Huh?
Hallelujah.
That may be the flesh of our new body. I don't know how to, as I think about what Jesus said there, as you can see, I have flesh and bones, but he can't have flesh and bones like we do. He has to have flesh and bones that are imperishable, indestructible. You know, if I scratch myself, I'm gonna bleed, right? Obviously, Jesus, his body's not gonna do that. His body's gonna be different. So our body is going to be like Jesus' body. We're going to look at a verse later on from Philippians that says that very clearly. But let's talk next about 3 different areas that we kind of see from Scripture that our body will be different from our current body in. And we're kind of speculating a little bit here, but most of it I think we have pretty clearly in Scripture. We're going to talk about the physical aspects of our body. We're going to talk about the purity of our body, the cleanliness, the internal cleanliness of our body. And we're going to talk about the capabilities of our new body. And this is stuff that we might argue about some of this, but I think most of this is pretty much in the Scriptures. So let's look at physical first. Our body's going to be incorruptible. It's not going to be able to be attacked by disease, by germs, by cancer, by heart disease, any of that stuff. Our body will be incorruptible. It will not be possible to corrupt it. And I'm talking about physically corrupted here. We'll talk about purity-wise corrupted later. Our body's also not going to be corruptible purity-wise, but it's going to be incorruptible to stuff that we think of as corrupts our body today. It's going to be indestructible. We will live forever. We will live forever. And everything about our body is going to be indestructible. It's not going to decompose. When you stick a body in the ground today, it decomposes. Our body is not going to decompose. It's not going to get old. It's not going to age. I don't know what it's going to be made of exactly. God knows, but I don't, what it's going to be made of. But somehow, it's not going to decompose. It's not going to dissolve. If we jump in the water, we're not going to, dissolve. It's not going to be dissolvable in any way. So nothing, even pouring acid on us isn't going to do anything to our new body. It's going to be material. By that I mean that we're not talking about a purely spiritual form here. We're talking about a real body that you can really reach out and touch. This will be a real body that we will be walking around with. Excuse me, in the new heaven and the new earth. This will be a real body. It's not we're not going to be spirits floating around in the air someplace. We're going to have a real body, and we'll be able to walk and sit and stand and run and do all the stuff that you can do with a real body. It will be visible. We're going to see each other. We will be able to see each other. We will act, so we will have substance that we will see. It will be sentient, so we will be able to sense everything that we sense today. A lot of it probably a lot better that we can sense today. So we'll be able to smell and hear and see. I'm guessing we're all going to have 20/20 hindsight. 20/20 hindsight. 20/20 eyesight. We may have 20/20 hindsight also.
That wouldn't be too bad either.
We're all going to have 20/20 eyesight up there. We'll all have a good sense of taste. I think all of our senses will be finely tuned and beautifully done up there. Motive. We're all going to be able to move around. We're all going to be able to walk and run and whatever. Just, do stuff. Just do the things that we would love to do. These will be real bodies just like we have today. And it will be a companion for our spirit. So our body will be built in such a way physically built in such a way that it will be a good companion for the spirit that we will have eternally. It will be a great companion for that. Questions on that? This is the physical side of our body. Any other questions about our physical bodies? I'm hoping for hair again. Yeah.
What about when you're cremated, when you passed away?
That's a great question. Somebody asked that last week. I don't remember who asked that, but somebody asked that question last week. And I did some studying this week. You can find different opinions out there on that. I don't think there's anything specifically in the Bible that talks about that, except that we know that even people who are completely burned up in a fire are going to get, let's say you're in a house, the house burns down, and you're completely burned up, you're nothing but ashes when you get done. We know that those people are going to get a body too if they're with Christ. We know that people who are lost at sea are going to get a body if they are with Christ. Even though the body's never found, even though it's completely eaten up by the little critters in the ocean, and there's no bones left, there's nothing, absolutely nothing left of that body. Even a body that's been in the earth for thousands of years where the bones have all dissolved, we know that those people will be able to get to heaven. So my instinct is pretty strongly that it won't make a difference. There are some pastors out there that teach that it will make a difference, and I've read a few of those this week. I don't know the answer, absolutely. If you want to be safe, don't do it, I guess. But chances are very high that God, however God will, we talked last week about how God is going to take a seed and grow it into a giant plant. And what happens is the old plant has to die first and create the seed. And when the old plant, that's our body, when the old plant dies and creates the seed goes into the ground, just like the body's buried. And it gets rain and all that, and it grows. God somehow turns that into a new life of a new plant. And that new plant grows and blossoms into a full, it could be an oak tree if it's the right kind of seed, into a big, beautiful plant of some kind. That's what we talked about last week. And Paul uses that in the verses we talked about last week to explain how God doesn't need every single molecule of our body to be able to create a new one. He can take a little tiny seed and create a new body. Now, if every single molecule of you is burned up in fire, there are some people that think, well, what is he going to use for a seed? I don't know. I think he has the same problem if somebody gets blown up in a nuclear explosion or something and they're just turned into atoms,
Maybe the seed's not collected after death. Maybe it's collected at the time of death.
Might be. Maybe God takes some piece of our DNA or something when we die and stores it someplace. I have no. I'm purely speculating here, but maybe he has it in a vault someplace that he knows for us, and he just brings that down, and maybe that's the seed.
He created fire too, so he's above all creation. He created fire too.
Yeah.
He has an answer for figuring out how it will come what he created.
By creation, he created Adam from the dust of the earth,
Right.
so.
God has the ability to create
Out of nothing.
out of absolutely nothing to create something fantastic. He did that 3 times in Genesis 1. He created, the first one is in Genesis 1:1. He created the universe. And the second one is in Genesis 1:21. I talked about this verse earlier, where he created the spirit of animals. And the third one is in Genesis 1:27, where he created the spirit of man. Those are the only 3 times that the book of Genesis uses the Hebrew word bara for created. And all those, and bara is a word that we don't have the equivalent of in English. Bara means to create something out of absolutely nothing. And God only ever did that 3 times in Genesis 1. And it was in Genesis 1:1, Genesis 1:21, and Genesis 1:27. He created those 3 things out of absolutely nothing. If you look at the rest of Genesis 1, there's something like 50 different verbs that are used in there. In the creation story, just check the verbs sometime. Just go through and look at all the different verbs. He made, he brought forth, this came forth. All these different verbs are in Genesis 1:1. And those aren't just innocent, those aren't just all mean the same thing. They don't all mean the same thing. They have different meanings. So the process of creation was very involved, and a lot of different things that God did through that process. But only 3 times did he ever create out of absolutely nothing, and that is those 3 verses, 1, 21, and 27. So, other questions? Okay, so let's move on to, we talked about the physical nature of our body. Let's talk about what's really inside of our body. What's our body going to be like? First of all, everything we know seems to think our body's going to be fair, beautiful. It's going to look like us at our best, right? Whatever our best age was, that's probably the age we're going to be at there, is the way I look at it. Whatever that age is, that's probably the age that we'll be at there. It's going to be comely. By comely, I mean we're going to be beautiful. People are going to look at us and say, wow, that is the person that I remember, from way back then. It's going to be attractive. I think everything, and it's interesting, as Debbie Fletcher came in and she and I were talking earlier, she read a book that was about thousands of examples of people who have gone beyond and come back in near-death experiences, and how the doctors and lawyers who looked at that they find that people look beautiful and they look attractive and they look like they did it at the finest stage of their lives. And that seems to be very consistent. Is that what we're gonna see? I don't know, but that seems to be what people who have passed over and come back have seen. Yeah.
What about babies?
That's an interesting one too. Babies, first of all, it's very clear that somebody who's never had an opportunity to sin is going to go to heaven.
Oh,
That's
I
all
know,
over
but
the,
I mean,
that is all over the Bible, okay?
I mean their bodies, you
Yeah.
know, their glorified bodies.
I don't think you're gonna be crawling around with a pacifier in your mouth for eternity, no. I don't find anything in the Bible that tells you exactly what's gonna happen to the body of a baby, but my instinct is, I mean, we have a granddaughter who died when she was little, and my instinct is when I meet her in heaven, she will be a full-grown woman. And that's my instinct, and she'll be a beautiful, full-grown woman, as she would have been had she attained that. That's what I think, but.
Well, I have a infant that died at 4.5 months, and it's, you know, it's like,
Yeah. No, I expect to meet her someday, probably sooner than I'd like, and I expect to, you know, to see her as a full-grown woman. But that's my expectation. I don't know that I can find that for you in the scriptures.
oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's up to God.
Right. Other questions? We're taking on some of the tough ones here. Babies, cremation, some of the tough issues. Okay, we've already said the body's going to be honorable. It is not going to be capable of sin. It is going to be a body that always does the right thing. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we lived in a world where everybody always did the right thing? Imagine that, right? What a place it's going to be. It'll be people that will be honorable. They will always do what's right. There'll be no rottenness to our bodies. We kind of talked about that, but there's no spiritual rottenness at all. There will be no sin, no evil desires. All of that stuff is all going to be gone. All the stuff that we struggle with every day, temptation, all that stuff is going to be gone. It won't be there anymore. I read you the verse from, I was going to read it to you at this point, but I read you the verse from Psalm 45:13 earlier. The king's daughter is all glorious within. That's what we're going to be like. We will be all glorious within, and it will radiate through us as people see us. People will know that we are all glorious within, and it will come out through this new body. There'll be no impurities in it. Nothing wrong, nothing sinful, nothing evil. We'll have no shame for anything. Imagine that, right? A world where nobody has any shame. There'll be no sores inside of us, no sickness, no germs inside of us. And I say there'll be a bright beauty that will come from within, and I believe shine through us. My instinct is that we will shine in there, but I'm not absolutely sure on that, but my instinct is that we'll shine, but that shine will truly come from within. You know, we'll certainly, today we'll sometimes say, well, gee, a person's eyes light up the room or whatever. I think it's going to be more than that. I think we're going to light up the room with the beauty that comes from inside of us. That's how I see it. Questions on that? Okay, let's move on to capabilities. What kind of capabilities is this body going to have? Are we truly going to be able to dunk basketballs, as the question came up earlier? Or what kind of capability? First of all, it's very clear from what we just read that this body will be strong. Now, does that mean we're going to be able to lift a car and hold it up in the air? I don't know, but the body will be much stronger than what we are today. Strong in the sense of being able to do things that we can't do today. Strong in the sense of being able to withstand things that we can't. Heat and cold and all that is not going to bother this body. It's just not going to. It can't be damaged. You can fall off a cliff and you're not going to get injured. You're not going to die. You're not going to have any broken bones or anything like that. This body will be a body that can't be damaged. It will be imperishable, as we said up here, and it will be imperishable. So it can't be destroyed in any way. How about things? My instinct is that we'll be able to hear sounds in a way that we can't hear them today, and appreciate sounds in a way that we can't hear them today. I don't have a great ear for music, for hearing it and appreciating it well. Deb can tell you I don't sing well. Am I going to be a good singer in eternity? Maybe, I don't know. But I think sounds will be another area that we'll be able to, that we will have maximum ability to understand sounds, maximum ability to hear and appreciate sounds. I think we'll have maximum ability to see and understand things as we see them, and just see the beauty in everything around us. I just expect to be walking around saying, wow, wow, wow. Maximum harmony. We will be in harmony with nature, in harmony with each other, in harmony with God. That's the most important part. But I think what's inside, the capability that we will have for harmony, will be immensely higher than it is today. So much of life today is dealing with division, with divisiveness and all of that. I just don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever up there. I think that we will have maximum harmony both internally between our body and our spirit. I think that will be in harmony, which is a problem today for most of us. I think we'll have maximum harmony with the people around us, and I think we'll have maximum harmony with God at that time. Maximum beauty. I think we will, whatever our most beautiful state is, that's where I think we'll have. But how about the ability to maximally appreciate beauty in other things? I think we'll be able to look at things and look at them and just see the beauty of things in ways that maybe we can't see them today. That's how I think it's going to be. We will have the highest thoughts. Wow. A lot of ways we can look at that concept. One of them is we will be thinking about the best stuff. We won't be thinking about stuff that's not good for us to be thinking about. But I think we'll also be able to understand stuff that we can't understand today. Think about all the things we don't understand from this book, right? Imagine being in a place where we'll be able to understand them. And we'll be able to understand God's plan in a deeper way. And we'll be able to understand so many other things. My background, my education was in physics. There's so many cool things about physics I would love to understand that people don't understand yet. I would love to understand so many of those things. Maybe I'll be able to understand more. Maybe I'll be able to understand more of that. We all have our own areas that we were in. Maybe you'll be able to understand more in that area than what you can understand today. My instinct is you will. Another piece, capability, is that the capabilities will be so perfect within us that glory will shine from us. And we talked about, and Debbie talked about that earlier when she was in here talking to me about this as I was writing all this down, that the book she read shows that everybody shines up there. There's a glory coming from people up there. Maybe there's a glory coming from us. Maybe people will just walk around and we'll all be shining with the excuse me, with the glory that's deep inside of us. The next one, our body will be perfectly suited for the new life that we're going to have. God is designing a body for us, for each one of us, that will be perfect for what we need it to be. Wow. It will be perfectly suited to having this new spirit inside of us. It will be perfectly suited to being able to commune with God. Imagine that, having a body that will be perfectly suited to being able to be in the presence of God and being able to commune with God. He wants us there. The whole reason He created us was so that we could be with Him someday. Right now, we don't have that capability. We will have that capability with this body. It will be perfectly suited for that capability. And then lastly, I want to close on what Paul said about this, about Christ's body, and there will be a slight difference from Christ's body, but this is from Philippians 3:20-21. Paul says, "But our citizenship is in heaven." So we don't really live here on earth. We just are kind of here for a while. The place we really live is in heaven. "And we eagerly await a Savior from there, the Lord Jesus Christ." We are all eagerly awaiting the day when we can be with Him, when He will be back and we can be with Him. "Who by the power that enables Him to bring everything under His control," so by His power, something's going to happen. And that's where we go next. Will transform our lowly bodies so that they might be like his glorious body. So our lowly bodies that we have today are going to be still us, but they're going to be transformed. They're going to be completely changed so that they are like his heavenly body. So our body is going to be very similar to the resurrected body that Christ came out of the grave with, this perfect, perfect body. And he was glowing when people saw him when he came out of the grave. This perfect, perfect body. Ours will be very similar to that. Now, notice a couple of things about that. First of all, the verb there is transform. We're not just changing a little bit, we are transforming. Our body is going to be very different from the one we have today. It will be perfectly suited for the world that we will be in the future. So we will be transformed. Secondly, our lowly bodies, so this body that we have today is going to be replaced, transformed, so that they might be like his glorious body. So our body's going to be glorious like his, but also understand the word like. We aren't going to have the full capabilities of Jesus. We are not going to be God. We are not going to have the full capabilities of Jesus. There is one thing we will not have that Jesus has in his body, and I'll talk about that. That's a couple of weeks in the future. But our bodies are, sorry, I gotta come up with the word again. Our bodies will be quickened. His body is quickening, and there's a difference, and I'll explain the difference as we get further into it. So it's a capability that our bodies have. We will be quickened. That means we will have a new life inside of us. His bodies will be quickening. He will be able to create new life in other people. That same new life in other people. So we will not have that power. So we are like his, not exactly his, but like his. Oh yeah, I have something on the back page. What do I have there? Yeah, one minor thing. You'll notice if you read through the scriptures all the way back to the Old Testament, when God talks about man, he talks about us spirit, soul, and body. He always uses the same way when he talks about who we are spirit, soul, and body. But notice whenever man talks about himself in the Bible, he reverses that. He says body, soul, and spirit. So man talks about ourselves with our body first, and then our soul and our spirit. God talks about ourselves with our spirit first, and our soul next, and then our body last. And that will be reversed as we get into this too. We will be at the point then where we will look at ourselves as spirit first, and then soul, and then this beautiful body. So this beautiful body is not going to be as important to us as it is today. But you'll see, if you look those three words up in the scripture and put them in the right order and find out, you'll see God always says spirit, soul, and body in the scriptures when he's talking about us. And we always say body, soul, and spirit when we're talking about us. That will be different in the new thing. So we got a couple minutes left. Anybody? Oh, Deb, you have a question? Oh, you're just telling me that we're getting close. I appreciate that. We do have about 2 minutes left. If anybody has any more questions, yeah.
What does that mean? Is those are things are loose here on earth, they're loose in heaven? What does that mean?
Jesus says, "Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Oh, wasn't ready for this one today. I spent a lot of time preparing for this class, but I wasn't ready for that question. Good question.
Some people say it has to do with divorce. You divorced here, and you might be divorced in heaven because of my wife.
I don't
We're
know.
not married in heaven.
I don't. Yeah, we will not be married in heaven. That's a whole nother subject. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus talks about you will not marry in heaven. You will not be given in marriage. You will not give in marriage. So a father will give his daughter. So in heaven, we will be not the bride of somebody else. We will be the bride of Christ. Our connection in heaven will not be side to side with our spouse. Our connection in heaven will be to Christ. It's not to say we aren't going to love everybody around us, including our ex-spouse, but it is to say that we will. Our relationship is to Him in heaven.
Well, there's not even going to be two sexes in heaven, is there? I always heard there was going to be one.
I kind of think. I'm not sure I've thought about that one either, but I kind of think.
Well, there's no reproduction then.
No, there's no reproduction in heaven, right? We will not. We will not be able to reproduce in heaven, that capability. Our new body has a lot of stuff, that's not one of them.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think this is great because the Democrats and the Republicans will finally see eye to eye. God's
We will.
you know.
Yes, we will all be God's children.
There wouldn't be-
Okay, let me cut the feed here, and if you're at home, we wish you a wonderful week in the Lord.